Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 24th meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. I have heard you read your emails. I will do my best to stay glued to this thing. And if it doesn't work, I'll tie it to my tie. Madam Clerk, we have a roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, all 5 selectmen are present, as is interim town administrator Mr. Sullivan and Attorney Bowen.
Wow. Big crowd. Okay.
I do not have any announcements.
Announcements.
Mr. Teitelbaum.
I have one, and this is from an article in Wareham Week. Bob White and Sharon Boyer are planning a morning parade down Main Street to Town Hall on Veterans Day, which will be observed on Monday, November 12th, and they are looking for volunteers to assist them. They are coordinating this event for the Wareham Veterans Council, and they need volunteers to direct participants along the parade route, to set up tables, to serve lunch, and to assist with cleanup. So they're looking for some help. You can contact Bob White at 508-274-4963, Sharon Boyer at 508-291-0187. Again, that's Bob White at 508-274-4963, or Sharon Boyer at 508-291-0187. Or you can email Mr. White at wrcw@verizon.net.
Mr. Slavin.
No announcements for tonight.
Mr. Slavin, the Kendrick Day, did you have the information on that?
The Kendrick Day is still scheduled for the 30th. Everything is in place. Everything we mentioned last week is there. We were expecting a governor's proclamation for the October 1st date. There was some confusion. The town of Harwich had about 3 months ago requested the same thing because he was born in Harwich, but everything is all in place. We expect to see Senator Pacheco and most likely Representative Gifford, and hopefully they'll have the proclamation there. Be about, I think, 1 to 3, 2 to, I think 1 to 3 or 2 to 3 at Lower Main Street. 2 to 4, sorry dear.
Mrs. Begley? Mr.
Should
Chairman?
we have a thing done too?
We probably should, yeah. I saw an email about it, but then I noticed that somebody else had responded, so I didn't respond to it.
Mr. Sullivan, can you work on that? Thought so.
Would have to be able to get into the office before the end of the week because we won't meet again until the 30th. I mean, till the 2nd of October.
Okay.
So when that gets completed, can the office let us know? Mr. Sullivan? Thank you.
Just that the only thing I have is I mentioned it last week on September 29th, which is Saturday, is the fundraiser for the Mary Jane Pillsbury Memorial Scholarship Fund. Mary Jane was a Board of Selectmen for many years and in charge of our library, and the family has put together this fundraiser every year. It'll be on Saturday evening at the Elks Club, and there's a female singer who is going to do 50s music, I believe. It should be a good time. So tickets will be available at the door. I believe they're $10 per person.
Actually, they're 20, and I was
thank you.
provided some that said 30 on them, so apparently it's pick your price day.
Yeah. Well, tell them that Peter sent you, and you can get him for $10. Okay, moving right along.
Next up is citizens' participation.
Anyone like to speak tonight, this evening? Sir? Good evening.
I'm Jack Carter, and I'm the president of the CPIA, Comerica Park Improvement Association, and we seem to have some problems from the sewer. The sewer, as it was the roads were graded, they were graded so that the catch basins were higher than the road. So the water is not going into the catch basins, and when it rains, there's runoff going directly into the bay. Now, I've tried to contact Mark Gifford. I emailed him. I went to his office. I've got no response whatsoever. But I feel that this is really part of the people who graded the roads for the sewers. That's their problem. And that should be corrected before anything is done with these sewers, before anything's approved. I mean, if you'd like to pass this around, we'd like to have it back. But I'd like you to see the runoff. And I'd also like you to see it breaks during the construction. These are the breaks at the end of each street. Take a look and see. There were never any straw bales. And all these are filled up now, and therefore nothing is going into the catch basins at all. I think it's a severe problem. Not only is it polluting Marks Cove, but every time it rains, it washes out the end of the streets. So it's become a real hazard for the people in that area to go to the beach. At the end of the street, there's as much as a 2-foot drop off. And it's a serious problem. I don't know what we can do, but we have to do something to get this handled.
I see Mr. Campino nodding his head. Mr. Campino, are you aware of this situation? I don't want to put you on the spot. Obviously, it's not an agenda item, but
They have all that.
I'm not totally aware, Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the board, of the drainage issue, but I do know the grading of the road is bringing the water to our our wet well in the middle of Mattapoisett. So everything comes from Cremisa down Mattapoisett. The grade brings it all into, so that's one of the issues we're dealing with. The water is coming to our our wet well, the Mattapoisett pump station. And of course, we're taking that water and we're pumping it down the line and we're going to treat that. So we're dealing with that. That's one of the issues we're working with Makepeace. So this is the first I've heard of the stormwater, and I can look at it. It's really out of my purview, but I would say to you the grading is not right there, so I would agree that there's probably other grading issues.
There's grading issues at the end of every street in Cremisa Park. The culverts are as much as 5 or 6 inches above the road, so therefore the water doesn't get into them at all. No matter where it goes or where it's supposed to go, it's not getting into them.
Mr. Sullivan, could you put on your list to make sure that you contact Mr. Gifford and find out? And then if you could send something out to the board tomorrow so that is he working this week? Is Mark in this week? Would you get with him tomorrow and get something out to the board? And sir, do you have the gentleman's contact info? Thanks, Guy. I didn't know if I saw your eyes moving and your head moving. I didn't want to put you in the spot. All right. Is there anyone else? Sorry, ma'am.
I'll look.
Good evening.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My question is everyone right now, not everyone, Mrs. Begley is pushing to set the betterment. Why is this a personal thing? We have a warrant. The selectmen know that we have a warrant. We're looking, your decision makers for the town. This warrant, you know that it's a chance for us to get other people involved and hopefully voted on. We've waited all this time. What doesn't matter with a matter of 3 weeks, 4 weeks? I mean, we've been patient. We are depending on our voters to get out there and vote on this. We've been fair. Why is it that it seems that you are pushing to set the betterment? I mean, your concern should be with the taxpayers, not on setting the betterment. I mean, what does it matter for 3 to 4 weeks? What is the matter? And actually, you've had a chance to look at the policies. Everyone knows that this was not done fairly.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm,
Put my finger down. What?
I wanted to, well, there were 2 points that I just wanted to make. The first is that we're not setting the betterment tonight. We're looking for a status update on the betterment. There are a number of issues that remain open with this contract, and it is, this board needs to be advised of the status of those issues, as you're well aware. And now we have a new issue brought to our attention. We would not be doing our due diligence if we weren't on top of those issues. And secondly, it's my understanding, and Attorney Bowen can correct me if I'm wrong, but even if we were to set the betterment tonight, we can always lower that betterment. We just can't increase it. So if we were to set the betterment before town meeting and your article were to pass, we would be able to make that change for you. We can't, this isn't something that's personal. We have to follow the process. If we didn't set a betterment because we were waiting for town meeting in the fall, and then we tried to set our betterment and a new article was filed for the spring, and we had to wait. Do you see what I'm saying? At some point, we have to just follow the process. But we're not setting a betterment tonight, and there's only, one more meeting before town meeting. So
That is my point, because we've sat here time and time again, and if we're not here, we're watching you on TV, and we're watching, pushing, it seems like it's being pushed now to set the betterment. And it's just unfair right now not to give us a chance to try to get it lowered.
well, and that's what I'm trying to explain. There's no push to set a betterment. The push is to ensure that the work that was done on the project that we've had issues with is being completed to our satisfaction. Before we can even set the betterment, we have to accept the project. We can't do that without standing issues.
Okay.
And it's only in your best interest that we ensure that those sewers are properly installed and working to our satisfaction before we set a betterment.
Okay.
Because once we accept them, we only have a 1-year warranty. Whatever goes wrong after that is on the backs of the ratepayers, because it's an enterprise fund. So we're actually trying to protect you in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
What else? Ma'am? Sir? Whichever.
My name is Arthur Schreiner, and I'm a property owner in the Cremesett section where your sewer program installs sewers, and supposedly those sewers are just about ready for acceptance by the town of Wareham. My concern is that I have heard, and I have only heard through scuttlebutt, that the two main entities in the sewer program in Cremesett are the pump stations, one located on Mattapoisett Road and one located in Cremesett. And the scuttlebutt is that those two pump stations are leaking. So if that is true, then I would continue to speak. If it isn't true, I have nothing to say. But if it is true, that I would think.
Let's ask the expert on the pump stations to give you that answer first, okay? Mr. Campino, if you wouldn't mind, this wouldn't be putting you on the spot.
No, it's
It should
actually
be
an
easy.
agenda item. We're going to speak of setting the betterments. He's correct. We're having a problem with inflow to the Mattapoisett pump station. All the rainwater goes there, so we're trying to rectify that. We have a meeting this week with Mike Judici, Tom Casey, myself, Mr. Gifford, and I was going to ask you if you could have a couple representatives from the Board of Selectmen come to this meeting also, so we can hash these things out. That was my suggestion, but we are going to meet. Mike called me back. He's back from vacation. He's in Connecticut tomorrow, and he said after that, it'd probably be Wednesday or Thursday, he would come down and we could sit and we could start going over the issues about the pump stations. But the gentleman is correct. We did take care of the problem at Cremisa Pump Station. There was a seam leaking. They grouted it, so they've taken care of that problem. But we also have an infiltration problem. Every time it rains, we're taking 3,000 to 4,000 gallons in the Cremisa Pump Station. And by TR16 code, and quoted by Mike Judici, 1,300 gallons is max. So we're getting 2,000 gallons more per event. So that has to be figured out. They have to go there and do some cameraing and figure out what they're going to do to identify those excessive gallons of groundwater. So we need to sit down and actually hammer that stuff out.
So,
Sir?
if that being true, that's basically my concern, that hopefully before you town people accept the system, that correction will be made. And I can offer you a suggestion, if you want to listen, that
Sure.
me coming from the past construction arena, that sometimes when there's a problem such as dire as a pump station leaking that has its wet well down into groundwater, it reverts into two categories of fault. It's either a construction deficiency to be blamed on the contractor, or it's a design deficiency to be blamed on the design engineer. And sometimes the design engineers in its contract has errors and omissions, and you go back and forth. A suggestion that I have experienced in past years is to expedite a problem like that. The town, because it doesn't have sanitation engineers on its payroll, would hire out a consultant from an out-of-state sanitation engineering firm to act as an arbitrator rather than take this through the courts. And the arbitrator, in finding out what the problem is and reading the design documents, could come to a swift decision as to whose fault it is. And once that party is named as the faulter, that party should pay, and it should not be payment by the town. So
Right.
that's my, okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Campion. I think that your meeting is really a day-to-day operation. I mean, if members of the board want to go, that's their business, but
Yeah, I was just, that's why I said
I
a
don't
couple.
think we need
but
board members there hashing things out. That's really
it's totally up to you, sir. I'm
that's
just
your-
going to mention it. But
it's up to them.
yes,
It's not
we
up
are
to me.
meeting this week. So I'll get you the exact date, and you can decide, but we are meeting this week.
Yeah.
I'm Marilyn Jordan, and I'm from Cremisa. And although they've touched on two of the issues that I had, one of which was my hope that the town would not sign off on a product that was not 100%. I do feel that CDM is responsible for this, and that whether it's the town attorneys or a guy or whoever has to sit down and hammer this out, because we don't want going forward down the road to end up with serious problems in the Cremisa area with pumping stations failing. By the same token, we don't have a tremendous amount of faith in CDM. I think they look at things as, okay, no, that's fine, it's only a little bit of water, but a little bit of water will become a lot of water. So we would like some type of insurance from the board and CDM that once this problem is fixed and after the warranty is up, they will continue to be a party to any problems, severe problems that we have with it. The other thing, we do have a warrant, which I know you're all well aware of, and I think it would be prudent of the board not to set any kind of a betterment, although you're not going to set it tonight, you are going to discuss things with CDM, but coming for the next 4 weeks, in case someone decides, oh, well, let's set it and then we'll reverse it afterwards. I think it would be overstepping the bounds, since that was a warrant that was put on by the taxpayers and the ratepayers.
Well, I can tell you, as the person who sets the agenda, given the issues that Mr. Campino is still tracking down on this contract, it would surprise me if that were in front of us before town meeting.
Okay. I know,
Because there's so much, and you know what? And a comment was made earlier, Selectman Begley was pushing for a betterment. Selectman Begley is, I won't speak for her, but we as a board are not pushing for a betterment. We're pushing for the completion of the project. That's what we're beating poor Mr. Campino up here on every day. Because at some point, we have to set this betterment. And when we're, and really it's, we would like to have already done it, but there are issues here that he's dealing with, CDM's dealing with, Judice's, all these guys are dealing with. And it's not ready for us to do that. We gave, at one of the workshops that we've had, we told people, a lot of people are asking us, when, what is it, what is it, what is it? There's a lot of those people too. And so for both sides of that issue on your side of the table, whether you want the betterment set or you don't, we need to get the information. We need to get this project complete. We need to be able to say, okay, it's done, and here's what the number is. That's what we're working towards.
Right, and I think
So,
that
and that's our job, by the way, and that's what you asked us to do,
and that's,
was to do our job.
right,
And which is what we're,
I think that by the same token, from this side of the table, as a person who's going to pay the betterment, I want to make sure that I got 100% of what my $6 million paid for.
that's correct. You're absolutely right.
Not 1 cent less.
Nobody's arguing
not
with you on that,
one drop
ma'am.
of water less do I want going in that pipe than what's supposed to be in our stormwater problem over there is an issue. It's a high water table. If you've ever been to Cremisa, you can't plant a blueberry bush without hitting water. So it's going to be an ongoing problem in that area. And if it starts out as a problem and CDM refuses to fix it, I think the residents of Cremisa and of Oakdale, if they have an issue, should be made well aware of that so that they can take remedial action on their own. And I guess the last thing and I hate to go back to this, but I am looking for a letter. I had been asking since July 25th. I sent in a Freedom Information Act regarding the grants that both the projects, Project 1 and Project 2, received. I haven't received that yet. And I'm also looking for a letter that the selectmen should be, I would assume the selectmen would have it in their file, from Copeland and Page, in which they handed down a decision, a legal decision with respect to, well, the board asked clarification for a legal definition of splitting instead of putting Project 1 and 2 like had been in your packets together. What happens if we split? Is there any ramifications from that? Are there any legal precedents? And I guess it was presented to the board and it convinced the board that, okay, you could do this. You could just set Parkwood up as a separate entity and pay that way, and then Cremisa and Oakdale would pay their fair share. So I'm wondering if I could see a copy of that letter and what legal precedent he was set.
If you'd follow up with, Derek, can you
hasn't?
look into that request? I was here. I don't care, I was here too.
Mr. Chairman,
I don't
it's,
remember a letter, do you? Did we ask for a letter of that?
No, the letter would have come to at least 2 boards prior to us, but my guess is that, and we'll have to have Mr. Sullivan double check, but that letter could be attorney-client privileged,
But that might be too.
possibly.
I don't think so, because it's part of the public record. When I spoke to the State House, they said anything in that area on a sewer project would be part of the public record. Because the way we're looking at this is that the way this was split up, it violated the Massachusetts General Law 8513, which I'm sure you've heard that
All
a
right,
million times.
so we'll have Mr. Sullivan follow up on that request. And does he have your information? Mr. Sullivan?
I will give it to him. He has
Yeah, that
it.
would be good. Does he have it?
does
If he has
have
it, you
it.
don't have to give it to him again.
I do have it. And were you able to check your email today?
No, I booked it down here for this meeting.
Ah,
You might be a happy person on one of those ends.
Okay.
so.
So now I'm going to come
Okay.
back and fill out another one tomorrow morning for this letter.
Are you going to be around at 8:30 tomorrow morning?
I will be.
That'd be a perfect time.
All right.
There you
I'll
go.
be there. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Okay, is that it? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, moving on to the consent agenda, there are no bills or documents. No, we don't have anything under authorization to sign bills and documents. We do have a letter to John Cornish regarding the zoning ruling.
You want to read that into the record?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. September 24th, 2012, to Mr. John Cornish regarding the Board of Appeals decision. Dear Mr. Cornish, as you may recall, the Board of Appeals issued a special permit to the Stonebridge Bistro, Stonebridge, on July 16th, 2012, concerning construction of a deck. The decision contained several conditions, one of which concerns the Board of Selectmen. Condition 5 provides as follows, and I quote, applicant will obtain a letter from the Board of Selectmen stating that the interests of the town in relation to the onset pay 1916 decree or such other judgments shall not be infringed upon, end quote. The plain language on Condition 5 requires only that Stonebridge obtain a letter from the board in which the board in effect warns Stonebridge not to infringe upon the 1916 decree or other pertinent judgments. The condition does not ask the board to make a determination as to whether the 1916 decree or other judgments are being infringed upon the activities that are the subject of the special permit application. Therefore, in accordance with Condition 5, the Board of Selectmen hereby advises you that you should not act in any fashion that infringes upon the interest of the town in relation to the Onset Bay 1916 decree and other related judgments. Please be advised that the town reserves all of its rights should Stonebridge ever act in a manner that violates the pertinent decrees and judgments. Very truly yours, Stephen M. Holmes, Chairman, Kara A. Winslow, Clerk, Ellen M. Begley, Alan H. Slavin, Peter W. Teitelbaum. Motion to approve as read.
Motion made. Second on the question?
I have a question. Who will make the determination if the Onset Bay 1916 decree is infringed upon?
Well, that would go back, I would assume. We'd either go through zoning or planning when the building was constructed, if one is ever constructed. I'll defer to our esteemed colleague, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think if, as the chairman stated, if at some point something they were doing turned out to be an infringement, that would be brought to the attention of the town. It could come through building, it could come through the ZBA, it could go from building to the ZBA for a determination, or conceivably it could come through this board. Ultimately, to enforce any of our rights, and what this letter says is that we're not waiving any of our rights to take enforcement action. Ultimately, to go to court, the Board of Selectmen would have to vote to bring an enforcement action to protect such rights as we might have.
I understand the enforcement. My question is the determination. So who where would a complaint come from if someone perceived that the Onset Bay 1916 decree was being violated?
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, it could come from anybody. It could come from a citizen. It could come from an environmental group. It could come from anywhere. But in order for it to get to court, I suppose one option would be for 3 citizens to go under the private attorney general environmental statute. They could have standing to bring an enforcement action. The town could bring an enforcement action if it so chose.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, nothing else. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
1. All right, so
3-1-1.
let's just do that. Okay, 3-1-1. Thank you very much. Next.
Next, Mr. Chairman, under licenses and permits, we have the request for the use of roads from Wareham Middle School for their annual Readers Become Leaders 5K race and walk from the Minot Forest School to Great Neck Road to R.D. Stillman Drive and back to Minot Forest School on Sunday, October 21st, 2012, from 12 noon to 1:30 p.m. Seeing nobody here, I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. All in favor on the question?
Aye.
All in favor? All opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0. Next up.
Next, under SOAR business, we have the approval of the commitment letter for the first half of 2013. This is pretty standard. Mr. Foster has written the letter. Please accept this letter as the board's commitment for the first half billing for FY13 SOAR usage fees in the amount of $2,611,591.54. I move to approve to send the letter.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, seconded by Mr. Titlebaum. On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the next agenda item, the status update on setting the betterment for contract 2,
Yes.
I believe that several members of this board have repeatedly asked for Mr. Giudice to be present to discuss some of these issues, and I have to be quite frank, I'm very disappointed that he is not sitting before us.
He's on vacation,
Okay, well,
and he is going to be coming in.
because I think that he needs to be here to explain to us what some of the plans are going to be. I mean, I do feel a little bit bad for Mr. Campina, who has to continue to sit here to discuss matters that are really CDM's issues. And it also seems that it's taking up the board's time when we're not getting the answers that we need.
Mr. Campino? I mean,
I believe
the guys
after-
coming in, you just said that give us an update on where that's at, and that way.
Point of
we're
order,
not
Mr.
taking a
Chairman.
piece from one
I'm
part of
sorry.
the meeting to another.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I have to recuse myself while this is going on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Guy.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Giudice called today. He's contacting Tom Casey, and he's going to get back to me tomorrow with a date that's acceptable for Tom Casey and himself this week. And at that time, I'll sit down with him and Mr. Gifford, and we'll take the punch list specific to Cremisa, and we'll try to get a resolution. At that time, we'll inform Mr. Giudice it has to be at the next selectmen's meeting to inform you is what we've talked about. So we'll all be here, him included, and then the questions can be asked, and we can get some kind of answers and resolutions to what we're going through. So that's our game plan. I think we've come down to the last of the issues. We resolved it was quite time consuming to get narrows taken care of. We got that taken care of. It's now on the generator system. The alarm system works. We had some issues with the communication with our alarm company. That's all done. They did the Cremisa fixing the actual leak in Cremisa pump station, but we still have the infiltration and the inflow issue that we have to deal with. And we've gone back and forth on that, so we'll definitely get answers and then have them presented to you and the board as to what's actually happening there. Mr. Deshay is right now adding that last 8 Hollow Tree Lane to the betterment because it was left out. He's doing that as we speak. I talked to him last week. He's going to registry deeds to record that, and that'll be done. So that's the betterment issue as far as a property that wasn't bettered. So that's done. So and the another issue came in besides the one tonight. The owner of 82 Avenue A says that his driveway was not paved properly. I went and got some pictures. I'll address that with Mr. Judici when we meet this week, and he can talk to the contractor. We're also, I'll have Mr. Judici bring that next meeting, but we're also trying to hammer out the Oak Terrace issue. I told him that we're not paying for it, and it's that simple. So if he has anything different than that, then he needs to come to the board and explain it. But as far as we're concerned, it's a no issue for us, and he can continue to make an issue, but we're not going to make it an issue.
Is that
we're
the
simply
berm?
not paying. That's yes, 82. They replace it on Oak Street to undermine the road. Well, they're billing us for it, and that's on the next change order. And I said we're not paying for that. So. That's something that the board will have to emphatically tell them that we're not paying for it and let them do what they got to do. But that's that issue. I'll have him bring that to you the next time we meet, so we'll get him on the agenda. I'll make sure I call Shirley so he can get him on the agenda after this meeting tonight, and then these questions can be pointedly asked to Mike Judici. And then also I'll be here, and I'll have Mark here, and we can answer questions also that evening to try to resolve these issues. But there are easy fixes, and I think the gentleman suggested an outside, and it may be what we need, an outside engineering firm. I've contacted a couple and just talked in general, and yes, we have an issue, and so we may need to go out of state to get somebody here to say, yes, verify that we have an issue, and then have an arbitrator and get some resolution. I think that's a good suggestion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Guy, I've asked so many times, what are the issues with contract 2? Because once we accept the project, then the clock starts ticking for 1 year.
Absolutely.
I have asked time and time again. The last time I asked you, you told me the only holdup were 2 properties. Now I'm hearing from residents. Let me finish.
Well, okay, but I thought I told you we have.
Please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Now I'm hearing from residents that the grading of most of the roads are grading it to the center of the street, that it's going into the bay, that I see some emails here that I'm seeing for the first time about these issues with the inflow, with the leaking, with the excessive water going into the system. And I've asked time again, and this is the first I'm hearing of this, is from citizens that are expressing their concerns. It's unacceptable to me as a sewer commissioner. It's unacceptable to me that I have several emails here that I'll only comment on in general because I just received them a very few minutes ago, that are only copied to Chairman Holmes about some of these issues. Unacceptable. It's a board of 5 sewer commissioners. So I agree with these people. We are not going to pay for a flawed project. Not going to happen. And I was there. I brought it to their attention, to Mr. Sharp. He accompanied former Selectman Cruz and myself and you to that area at Oak Terrace. And it was clear that the way they had graded the roads was causing kind of whitewater river rafting right down to Tempest Knob boat ramp. And they agreed to fix it at their expense. We are not paying for that. I am never going to sign something that says that we're paying for that. But I'm a little bit upset that the last time I spoke to you, I was told that the only holdup were 2 properties and not all of this.
I believe, and I'll check the minutes, I believe that I've constantly talked about the inflow and infiltration. It's not the first time I mentioned it. It's been an ongoing problem since back in April.
I've asked
May.
you about ongoing problems.
And I keep saying infiltration, I&I. We have I&I issues. I&I issues. I also, in the last update, I sent a letter to you and the board that talked about these very issues and where we are with them. I put it in writing. I give you, it's in that packet. You'll see that packet. In that packet is a letter to you and the rest of the board, what the
Dated.
issues were. Dated a month ago, 2 months ago? Absolutely.
Right, but
So,
it's,
but what I'm saying to you is, this is not the first time I mentioned I&I, ma'am. And if I don't know what else to say, but I've constantly mentioned it as far as we've been going through this process for quite some time, and I've been adamant about I&I. I refuse to put my endorsement on it, and because I am concerned we have to treat that water, and we have an issue with capacity, and I don't want to treat groundwater. I've made this statement multiple times. It's
well,
not the first.
I would ask you that any communication you have regarding anything to do with sewer goes to every member of this board.
And I'll do that. The habit is at previous boards, and I apologize, but it was always instructed to me to email everybody and to the chairman, and the chairman would share with the board. So that's how I've done it. Mr. Holmes has explained to me now, no, every time I talk, go to the whole board, and I'll follow his direction. That'll happen from this day forward. But that's how I did it in the past, and I'm sorry it's upsetting, but my intention was not to exclude anybody. It was just to get to one member, and it can be shared. So I apologize for that, and I'll make sure every board member gets everything. But I have been instructed that way in the past, and so I've been continuing to do that, and we'll change the procedure, and I'll make sure that everybody gets anything that I get out that I would CC to Mr. Holmes as chairman. I'll CC every board member. That's not a problem.
Well, Mr. Campina, when I ask you what's going on with contract 2, I'd like to know about ongoing issues moving forward. So if I have to be specific as to what we need, this board needs to be informed about anything that's new, anything that's unresolved, anything and everything.
It's true.
So even if you have to put it on a list and say, it's still leaking, it's still an unresolved issue, they're still billing us for something that we're not going to pay for. I was unaware of the grading of the roads in Cremisa.
First time I heard of it, I myself hadn't been aware of the issue. So you and like myself are aware tonight. So we'll address it. But the I&I hasn't been ongoing for months. In May we talked about it. It's been going for months, and we're still working with it. I have the numbers, and so I'm disputing his numbers, and I have the actual pump. So I'm using actual values compared to hypothetical, and the real numbers do not match up to his hypothetical. It's more than his hypothetical. I'm talking real numbers, he's talking hypothetical, and I want to deal with the real numbers. And I've made this clear, and I have never been happy with the I&I in them stations, never.
Mr. Chair, I have to reiterate what Selectman Winslow said. This is a multi-million-dollar project, and Mr. Judici needs to be here. And I understand he's on vacation, but has he been on vacation for the last 6 months? That these have been ongoing issues? It's a rhetorical question.
I figured that. You didn't expect me to know the personal habits of Mr. Judas. Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chairman, once again, I don't understand what's gone wrong here. I sat on this board when we went through the end of contract 1. We had a punch list. We went through the punch list. We had Mr. Judici here quite frequently dealing with the last of those issues. I'm getting more and more upset because at some point I'm going to have to raise my hand and say aye and approve this project, and I'm going to have a hard time doing that if we continue down this road. What I would like, Mr. Chairman, is the punch list of the issues that are outstanding. The board could have those and where we're at with them prior to the meeting with Mr. Judici. And I'm not going to take up your time, Mr. Campina. I know you have to go to work tomorrow. I mean, we'll just sit here and rehash the same stuff that you can't answer. I'll save it for Mr. Judici.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Well, I would echo Selectman Winslow's request for a punch list. I think it would be helpful. It would provide guidance. We wouldn't have to then wonder whether we were told about something in the past. From that point forward, I think it would be helpful to you. It would be helpful for your planning and your dealings with your meetings with the engineers to try to hash these out. It would be helpful to our understanding of what's going on. And further, I would suggest that anybody right now understand that when this project is accepted, we've got 1 year to make warranty claims. So if you live in the Contract 2 area and you're concerned about roads that you don't think were built properly. You're concerned about stormwater drains that aren't working, that have been replaced during the project. If you've got any infrastructure issues that you observe, now is the time to bring them to the attention of Mr. Campina and this board, because we don't want you coming in here 2 years from now and complaining about something and have us throw up our hands and say, but the warranty is expired. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help to get the project done the way it should be done. So please take heed and bring these matters forward now. And I would like to thank the members of the Cremisa Improvement Association for doing this tonight. It's a good example of the kind of input we need to hear from the public about these projects, because we can't go out and inspect all these streets ourselves and figure it out.
Okay, so Guy, when you meet with them this week, just let me know when you have some answers. And that way I can schedule it.
I'll get off the punch list. We're going to discuss an actual punch list.
Yeah,
I
but if
did
you can
email
get that
the
out
board.
to the board, you can do that
Yeah.
via email. I'm talking
Yeah.
about, Mike and Chris and whoever else has to come in. Just pick a Tuesday.
Okay. No, I'll try to get the very next Tuesday, if they're available, or thereafter shortly, but we'll get them in.
We have Monday. We have a couple of. We have a Monday meeting in there for town meeting. We can do it there. We can do it whenever you're ready. Just let me know.
Well, I'm hoping to get a consensus this week on where we are, where we're going. And we've been doing this for quite some time,
That
so
would be
I
good to
want
have a consensus on it.
And then we can move it forward, present it to the board,
All
and
right.
resolve all the punch lists, what we have, and give you the punch list where we are. And I'll resend the punch list I sent about a month ago. I'll resend that, because I did send to every member of the punch list.
Yeah.
I'll resend that, so you'll have a reference, and then when I get the new one from Mike, you can see where we've been and what we're doing, and we can go from there.
Unfortunately, I think your punch list is growing as we
Oh, yeah.
every night.
Oh, yeah, it continues to grow.
Any other sewer business? No, all set. Thank you, Mr. Campina.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Is there
Mr.
anything else on-
Campina.
Is there anything else on here for you?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Slaw
Mr. Slavin
is heading back.
is heading back. It is 8:17, and under town business, we have Attorney Bowen to address Selectman Slavin and the intern program. Attorney Bowen?
Do you need to go back out? We're gonna talk about you now. You could have just stayed. You could have just stayed right where you were.
Well, I'm gonna do a magic language. All right, as I understand it,
You got a presentation?
Yeah. So, as I understand it, the issue at hand is whether the operation of the intern program constitutes a violation of the charter. And the section of the charter that we're dealing with is section 3-2B, which I will read for you. It states, "The executive powers of the town shall be vested in the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen shall have all of the executive powers given to boards of selectmen by general law or otherwise. The Board of Selectmen shall serve as chief policy-making agency of the town, responsible for the establishment of policy, directives, and guidelines to be followed by all town agencies serving under it, provided, however, that no individual member of the Board of Selectmen nor a majority of it at any time attempt to be involved in the day-to-day administration of the affairs of the town, but shall at all times act only through the establishment of said policy, directives, and guidelines, which are to be implemented by officers, employees appointed or employed by it." Now, so the question is, and if I can move this to its next position, is whether getting involved in an intern program constitutes a violation of the charter. And is that the question that we have here, just so we're all on the same page? Well, unfortunately, I can't get this to move
That's
to
the
the next.
question that was raised.
Okay, so actually, Derek, if you can help me get this.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes?
Oh, it's just scrolling.
I mean, it was kind of a two-part question,
Oh, I got
only
it.
because I
Well,
asked.
fill us in on the second part then. so
Well,
Mr.
I
Bowen
asked if
can be sure
that
to
the
address
town
that.
administrator could appoint a member of the board to do so.
Oh. So the second question, Mr. Bowen, is
Yes,
if
sir.
the town administrator could appoint someone if they so choose to do it.
To work underneath the town administrator. Okay, well,
Well,
that
the
wasn't,
intern, to be a supervisor in the intern program.
okay, well, that wasn't part of the original question presented, but I can answer that. So, I think the thing to do is to actually go through the intern documents as soon as, you had one up there a second ago. Okay. With the help of the interim town administrator and a little bit of research with UMass, we've been able to turn up some of the documents that relate to the operation of the intern program. And the town of Wareham actually has a contract with the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth to, under the Federal Work Study Program, wherein UMass Dartmouth provides interns to the town at no cost to the town, makes them available to the town for whatever use that the town chooses to make of them. So here is one of the contracts. This is dated April 12th, 2012. And that's the front page. So we have a contract. Oh, pardon me.
That's prior to Mr. Slade's election.
Thank you. I have other documents that we'll be going through. Derek, actually, you seem to have more of a knack with this than I do. Maybe you should take this chair and I should get up there. Thanks. So, this is one such contract between UMass Dartmouth and the town. In order to comply with federal law, because you can't use interns as a substitute for employee without breaking federal law, there has to be an educational benefit to the person who's the intern, hence all the contractual language. Now, this particular contract, which was signed by the town administrator, Mark Andrews, on February 28th, 2012. The agency authorized hiring official, Mark Andrews, the town administrator. The town accountant has co-signed it, signature of the town administrator, signature of the official of UMass who runs the intern program. And this just sets up the terms under which the program operates. Yes, Ms.
Attorney Bowen, forgive me for being facetious, but whose name is town accountant?
I have no idea. It's funny, it just says name, town accountant.
Who would name their child that?
Question for someone else, perhaps. Derek, could you give me the next page? So, the town has a contract with UMass for this intern program signed by the town administrator. This is another part of it, in which case, again, town of Wareham, in this case, town administrator, the contact person, Derek Sullivan, with administration. Again, we have the ill-named person, town accountant, just to anticipate your question. The contact person, Derek Sullivan. Derek, could you read the next one, please? Okay. Contract definitions, and so forth. Okay, keep going. All right. Here we have a letter from Mr. Slavin, and Derek, could you just see if we can get a date up on the top end? There is a date up here. There we go.
Prior to
February
election.
27th, 2012, to the person who runs the system at UMass Dartmouth. And this is then Mr. Slavin, not Selectman Slavin, setting out the terms of how it is going to work. He identifies the town administrator, Mark Andrews, as the required authorizing signature. So we have that. So that's one of the documents that we've taken a look at. And if you could give me the next one, Derek, that would be great. Now, is Mr. Slavin. That is his personal email address, and I'm told that is his cell phone number. Okay, what's next, Jared? All right, here is a similar listing. Again, this is working with town, again, company or organization, town of Wareham, town administrator, working with town administrator, looking for a computer person. Supervisor, Alan Slavin, phone number, and personal email. Derek, if you just throw a couple more up there like that. Similar situation there, the same fields to be filled in. Could you do the next one, Derek? Okay. Now, I went on the UMass site to try to navigate this posting, and I'll ask the interim town administrator about this as well. And I actually looked for a contact entry, and just go down a little bit, Darren.
It's right there at the top.
Yeah, I know. Derek, can you scroll back down for me? Okay. Supervisor, there is not a field here for contact person. The only available field is supervisor. And on these sheets, Mr. Slavin is listed as supervisor. And I suppose the question, and I might as well ask it now, to Selectman Slavin, at any time did you act as a supervisor for any of the interns that came before the town?
No. That supervisor position there, that's the only contact position in the form that you have to fill out.
All right. And I guess I'll ask the interim town administrator, have you navigated the site or reviewed these materials?
I have gone through it, yes.
Is there a field for a contact person other than that supervisor line entry?
No, that's a way to put in the contact information.
Okay. Could you just keep scrolling up for me there? Okay. Or actually, go the other way. Move on to the next document. Okay, here's another example. It's exactly the same. Hiring department, company, Wareham, town administrator, so forth. If you scroll down, you'll see the supervisor field that again had Mr. Slavin in there. What else have we got left on the thing? Another one, exactly the same. This one is for the council on aging. This one is for the police department.
Did you go by the Affordable Housing Trust one already?
No, I don't think we did. I think, there is one for the Affordable Housing Trust in here. Maybe we did go by it.
No, it must be at the end.
Now, here it is. This is one for the Affordable Housing Trust. So, Derek, could you just, again, scroll back to the end of the documents? To the end.
When we're at the end,
Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate it. So, what, you know, in coming to an opinion, and I have come to an opinion, these are the documents that I went through. I looked at the charter, I looked at these documents, I made an effort to navigate the website myself. I've just asked Mr. Slavin if he acted as a supervisor of any of these, and I'll ask the interim town administrator because I saw his name on some of these. Mr. Town Administrator, could you describe to the board how the intern system worked?
Mr. Slavin would bring in the information on the interns there. That would include going to I don't know if you'd call it the career fair, but one of the centers where you'd go there and actually physically be there for several hours to be able to promote the town and the intern program. That's a help, because obviously taking manpower out of the town itself is tough to do. Then the interns actually would directly report to whatever the department they're in. So if they're in the accounting office, they directly report to the town accountant. The documents, I would sign off on them. There's a person who right now we're trying to bring in who responds to me so we can set up a meeting to meet with them. I know the former town administrator, Mr. Andrews, had denied for whatever reason a few of the intern applicants, whether the program wasn't appropriate for what they, either what skills they brought or what was needed. I can't tell to what reason that was. That's sort of a generic summary on there. At the end of the day, I'm the one signing off on them, and they're working within certain departments. We would ask the departments what their needs might be, so I can see where maybe sometimes that's how it wouldn't work. Obviously, I don't want an accounting intern coming in and stacking papers. It wouldn't be good for them or probably for the town, really.
Is it your understanding that no board was compelled to accept an intern if one was made available?
No, if they don't want them, then that wouldn't work. That should be bad for both the town and the student.
Okay, and have you seen correspondence in which departments or individual officers sought interns?
We have had some, and I remember sending, I'm pretty sure that I've sent one out before asking what needs there might be for any of the departments. And a lot of times you get the response, yes, I want one, but you want to make sure that there's a project. So if it isn't one of those things where they walk in and then it's a headache trying to figure out what you want them to do. There's actually a project and a plan in place.
In your experience with Mr. Andrews, Mr. Foster, now your own experience, do either yourself or your predecessors have any interest in going to these job fairs and administering this themselves?
Yeah, gentlemen, can we kind of get to the point here? Having a selectman on trial is just not. I'm finding this whole thing getting to be utterly inappropriate.
This is, let me tell you.
Can we just get to the point, please? Please.
Mr. Chair, since I do feel like I'm on trial, here's the thing. I beg your pardon, Mr. Titleman.
Excuse me. I'm still the chairman of the meeting. I think Mr. Slavin here has been
that
questioned.
Is not.
And now he's on trial. It seems
okay.
like he's on trial.
This,
I don't think that was the intention here.
That wasn't the intention.
That's what this has turned into.
That's exactly what it's turned into.
Pull the plug on this. This is just.
That's exactly what this has turned into. This has been. This is my complaint, Attorney Bowen. I absolutely understood and supported Selectman Slavin starting the intern program. The intern program is not on trial here. I shouldn't be on trial here, and Selectman Slavin shouldn't be on trial here. This is my question. I have a newspaper article here from 2009, and it is absolutely wonderful about the intern program. I am not saying that we shouldn't have it. What I'm saying is, given that Mr. Slavin is now an elected member of this board, and we're not looking for a way to bend the charter or look around the charter or even have people have the perception that we're doing so. My question is this: is it now time for someone else to take over with the intern program as long as Mr. Slavin is an elected office? That's my question. And as it is, one of these jobs that an intern was sought was not by a motion or a vote by Affordable Housing Trust. So Mr. Slavin being involved can certainly be involved in this and coming alongside someone and helping them along, since he's been doing this for 3 years. My question is that he is going to be, these are people that are into day-to-day departments. So what's to prevent me from saying, well, you know, we've got some people that have keep applying for various committees, And maybe they would like to be interns. So, you know, I think I should be in charge of those interns or in charge of finding those interns. That's the question. Not putting Selectman Slavin on trial or myself.
Mr. Chairman, whenever you're ready.
I'd like to really round this up because
Well,
this
look,
is
look,
it's very, this
you
is,
know, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, with
I
respect.
I asked you for an answer. I understand that.
You're
Yeah, but
gonna-
I'd like to get the short story because this is getting embarrassing.
You're going to get the short story.
Thank you.
And here's the deal. I've now had 3 different versions of the same question. All right? The bottom line is this. If the town administrator, who is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the town, wants to delegate responsibility to any individual to help out on some matter that he or she doesn't have time to work with, then the town administrator can do that. If this board wants to come up with a policy that changes that, you may do that. I'm not putting Ms. Begley on trial. I'm not putting Mr. Slavin on trial. I have great respect and affection for both individuals. But we all know that if I render an opinion in private, a piece of paper, everybody's going to say, oh, what was he looking at? Oh, how did he get it? Well, guess what, folks?
I understand.
No, let me
I
finish.
understand that
You
too.
now have seen the same paper that I saw. You've seen the charter, and you know my opinion now. Mr. Slavin is not supervising these people. He is a contact person. These people are gathered up. The town administrator can reject them. The boards to whom these people might go can reject them. That is not improper. That is in accordance with the charter. If this board wants to adopt a policy whereby Mr. Slavin no longer runs this program, it's perfectly free to do so. But these are the documents, that's the charter, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
So, what is Attorney Boeing saying that the town, this
Well,
board
he's
as
right
a
here.
whole,
Rick,
So
Rich,
this-
could
this-
you just stay right there and answer any questions?
this board as a whole is, for lack of a better word, is the boss of the town administrator. So you're saying that the town administrator can choose one member of this board and appoint them to something? That's what you're saying?
That's not what I said.
I'm
said
asking.
I said that Mr. Slavin, who was running this program and apparently had an interest in continuing to do so, could, if the town administrator wanted to continue to allow him to run it, do so.
I disagree.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think,
Wait 1 second. Yes, you may.
thank you.
Got to have this thing close by. I'm going to get this clip. Or I might die.
If I'm hearing, and I'm trying to sit back and just hear what everybody's saying, if I'm hearing everything correctly, Mr. Slavin took the initiative many years ago as a private citizen to put together this program that's been both beneficial to the UMass students and to the town. No disagreement over that. At some point, Mr. Slavin became elected to this board, and his contact information remained because he was still working with a program that he had had the initiative to start. Mrs. Begley is concerned because Mr. Slavin is now a member of the board. So my question would be, would it be appropriate for this board to appoint a liaison to the internship program to work alongside the town administrator in keeping it going, and who can attend these job fairs and other things? Would that be a process that everybody would be in agreement in, and then we wouldn't? I admit the wording is a little misleading, but it is what it is, and it's a state agency, so what are you going to do, right?
I can't fix the way they do it.
I know.
If you look at the form, you'll find out what they mean by supervisor is the contact person.
Right. But I would think it would be more appropriate for this board to appoint our own liaison rather than having what is technically a subordinate to us appoint one of us as their. Can we agree to that? Is that something we can do? Because I think that would probably resolve and clarify the issue for everybody. And that way, 20 years from now, when Mr. Slavin retires to a nice island, we'll, still have an involvement in the internship program. We'll set something up that will carry on beyond us. That's all.
Mr. Titlebaum.
Selectman Winslow, I'm in favor of anything that frankly ends this debacle.
Well, then I'll make a motion for this board to appoint Mr. Slavin as the liaison to the internship program.
Second with pleasure.
Does that work? Good.
I have a motion made and seconded. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. 401. Thank you very much for
I'd like
clearing
to,
that up.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to have a couple minutes here.
Absolutely.
Sorry. What I did was, because this question really bothered me, especially since I have so much involvement with the charter over the years, I actually contacted Phyllis McGraw-Deacus. If anybody looks at the charter, you'll see her name there as one of the writers of the charter. And the reason they did it, the day-to-day, was for specific reasons, which I'm not going to get into. Her letter to me was, in regard to your question about your involvement in the intern program violation of the town charter restriction on selectmen interfering with day-to-day business of the town, I offer the following. My recollection of the charter members' discussion on this matter had more to do with any selectman interfering, I repeat, interfering with the town administrator's decision making, especially in regards to department heads and employees. In the description of your involvement with the intern program, I find no interference by your involvement, nor does it violate the charter. The original reason when they had 3 selectmen, the problem was that one selectman would come in to the town administrator and say, I want to do this. 5 minutes later, the second selectman, we'll call A, B, and C. B would come in and say, forget what A said, I want you to do what I said. Then about 15 minutes later, Selectman C would show up and say, forget about A and B, I want you to do this. This was going on back at that time. There was also purchasing and other issues being done. This is why way back in 1977, they changed over to what they did. That's number one. I'd also like to read a statement because this whole issue, I think, was done out of hand. We basically, before we even started, the issue was brought up not on the agenda, basically a violation of the open meeting law, which we allowed this to happen, which is our own fault.
It's on the agenda.
It is now. It wasn't originally. The issue of whether I intentionally or inadvertently violated the section of the charter detailing day-to-day is important, but one must look below the surface to better understand what has and is happening. Town Council Bowen will make the ruling, and if the changes are needed, they will be done. What really has to change is the reason this issue even got to this point. Most people, due to my work on the Charter Committee, will hold me in a higher standard of understanding of what is right or wrong as concerns the Charter. I, at times, am aware of that standard and make every effort to meet those expectations. Is the intern program not beneficial to the town? Does the administration have issues? I believe the program has had a positive result with negligible financial cost versus benefits. The question now becomes who is complaining and why. One complaint originated basically from the Affordable Housing Trust. The Affordable Housing Trust basically had what they call a production report done, housing production report. In there, it requested that they come up with an intern. That's how I got the information. It was supplied to me through the housing production report. A member of that particular committee had an objection that it wasn't passed through the committee and approved. The intern that was offered if they wanted to use it. It was never said it's yours, you have to use it. The other problem I have is that if the person had a problem, they should have gone to the town administrator on that particular issue. Instead, they went to a particular member of the Board of Selectmen, who then made the charge about the day-to-day issue. They claimed that because my name was on the email and my phone number, because that's the only contact information, this was basically causing a conflict. You've already heard the process and the reasons about how the program is handled. I'm not boring you with it. The real question is actually about a perceived or a potential violation, or is it a personal agenda? Let me finish. I don't interrupt you. The board is expected by the residents of Wareham to show professionalism and show respect when dealing with department heads, employees, other boards, committees, residents, business people, and amongst themselves. I do not believe we have done that. By being silent, we actually condone it. In other words, we enable it. We do not follow Robert's rules. We do not allow discussion not listed. We allow discussion not listed in the agenda. The citizens of Wareham expect more from us, as they should. We need to stop allowing ourselves to become sidetracked with unneeded, unproductive, and time-wasting diversions and get the job done that is expected of us. Thank you.
Easy, easy. All right, anything else here before we move on?
Dare
You have something, Mrs. Begley?
Yes, I do. I think that Selectman Slavin makes some good points, and I think that there hasn't been very good communication here. But it certainly hasn't been easy to have conversations with members of this board. I think that it's been difficult, certainly. And moving forward, I hope that we can certainly change for the better of this town. Without shaking your head, Selectman Tyler.
Anything else? Let's move on, please. Mrs. Winslow.
Mr. Chairman, we have the legal opinion on discussion based on the 48-hour reasonably anticipated items for discussion, which I assume is hopefully going to be...
Well, you know, this really started when I asked for Rich's opinion on this because I didn't put it on today. Or did I? I did not. Old business, you know, I'm used to a meeting that you have that old business, you discuss things that are out there that are unfinished, then you have new business, then you have an emergency business. And we do need a clarification on what emergency business is, because this whole issue of the intern program came up under this section of our meeting. So
Well, Mr. Chair.
before I violate any more open meeting laws, that's not my goal here, I asked Rich to give the board his opinion on what this stands for, so that in the future I don't violate the law.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I believe that the issue that Mrs. Begley raised that night was that she was looking for agenda items, and now you have created the calendar, which we can all access.
No. Nobody's like, if you're here looking for agenda items, then you haven't read any emails I've sent since I took over, or listened to me once, because I've always said, if you have an agenda item, ask me about it or send me an email.
But I believe that was what the...
And this is not the place, and I've said that before, this is not where agenda items come from unless it's coming from a discussion. So I'd like to hear the opinion of town council on the open meeting law as it relates to this area. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, no slideshow on this one.
Thank you very much.
My
I
pleasure.
hope it's brief. I wasn't looking for a long answer. Just something to help guide the board through.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I think that particular agenda item is a very dangerous one. Here's what the open meeting law says. At Chapter 30A, Section 20, subsection B, it says that notice shall be printed in a legible, easily understandable format and shall contain the date, time, and place of such meeting and a listing of all topics that the chair reasonably anticipates will be discussed at the meeting. And what the agenda item up until now has said, it would be items that could not be reasonably anticipated. So it actually is saying something that's quite different from what Section 20B says about what should be put up there. Now, that's not to say that having that particular agenda item is improper. It can be proper. It's a question of how it's used. And the proper use of that agenda item is for emergencies. And Chapter 30A, Section 18, defines an emergency as follows. Emergency, a sudden, generally unexpected occurrence or set of circumstances demanding immediate action. Case law under the former Chapter 39, Section 23, and what follows, has defined what constitutes an emergency. And the essence of an emergency is something that is an immediate threat to public health, welfare, or safety. You have a disaster you need to respond to. You have something very serious that you need to deal with. So my opinion is that the agenda item that has been appearing is proper, but it must be used with the greatest of care. The question that each member must ask him or herself before raising an item or raising a discussion under that particular item is this: does the item that I'm about to raise under this particular agenda item constitute something that is an unexpected occurrence or a set of circumstances demanding immediate action such that public health, welfare, or safety is imperiled? And if the answer is no, then the matter should wait until the next meeting and be a regular agenda item. Thank you.
And in terms of the agenda item, thank you for that. So when we get to that point in the meeting, if something comes up that's not an emergency, non-urgent, and can reasonably wait until the next meeting, because really that's what we're talking about, without the need for an emergency session, then I should say, out of bounds, can't do that, right? And I haven't done that for the most part. I've pretty much allowed whatever people want to do, so I apologize for that. Now, the issue of old business, unfinished business on an agenda. Do they have to be? Do the items have to be listed, or can it be? We're in the middle of doing something in unfinished business. Do we have to list what the unfinished business is? Because, I mean, that's pretty easy to do. And then you could cherry pick off of that if there's unfinished business, or does it have to become a new agenda item? Because I have that on there, too.
Yeah, but with your permission, Mr. Chairman, you've got with an unfinished business item in there, I mean, the whole idea behind the revised open meeting law is to give the public as much notice of what it is that's going to be discussed at the meeting as possible. And so if you're taking up matters of substance under, something like old business or unfinished business, you're not really honoring the spirit of the law by providing that kind of notice to the public. So my advice is that if you are aware of items of unfinished business that ought to be taken up, by all means put unfinished business on, but then maybe put some subheadings. Not to pick on Guy, but status of improper elevation of drainage basins. Sorry, Guy. Whatever.
Poor Guy.
Yeah.
You want to sit in maybe Mr. Campini, you want to sit in the back row? No, he's enjoying the meeting.
But you know what I'm saying. It's just.
Well, the planning board walked in a few minutes ago. We could pick on them. I see some clean water guy here. We can pick on him for a little while. We can leave Mr. Campino alone, though. Sorry. So it's okay. So, but that is a good example, isn't it? Because then, Selectmen asked Mr. Campino, you never gave us a punch list, which you did, and so that the punch list could go on old finished business, right? And that way there we know it's still out there to be dealt with. In the any business I'm going to take, any other business, because that's all kind of the same thing. See what I'm trying to get to here? I'm in a position here where I got 3 areas where anybody on this table can say whatever they want. And then at some point, somebody's going to file a complaint. I think Mr. Slavin might now, but because he brought it up. I don't think he would do that against me. I am the chairman, you would have to report me to me, just so you know how that works now. Or Mrs. Winslow is the clerk, you'd have to report me to Mrs. Winslow. And I guess so, any other business is kind of the same thing, isn't it, Mr. Bowen?
Yes, sir.
So we can't just willy-nilly throw things under any business.
Times have changed.
I'm sorry?
I say times
I'm not saying that we throw things willy-nilly. That was probably a bad way to put that. But we can't just come in with our ideas and fill the airways unless it's on the agenda. So, are there any questions about this so that in the future, Mr. Titlebaum, you're waving your hands?
Yes, just briefly to follow up on Attorney Bowen's suggestion that we carry through little subheadings of unfinished business. I've had the pleasure now of being involved on 2 committees, first the Minot Forest Committee and now the Affordable Housing Trust, where Mrs. Slavin has been the chairman, and when she prepares the agenda, anything that hasn't been wrapped up, hasn't been voted on, hasn't been completed gets carried over meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. Now that results in sometimes some pretty long agendas, and sometimes it takes 6 months to a year to get something off. But in that way, you're always providing the proper kind of notice, and you can't get in trouble for trying to shoehorn something in that you didn't notice as an agenda item. So I think that's a pretty good suggestion.
As I'm thinking about that, it's actually pretty easy to do. As long as the way the town system works, I can put it on there, Mr. Campino, punch list. I'll just say that. And I'll put that on tonight, and it'll come under unfinished business every week. And then when it's finally done, right, then it's very simple to go in and delete the task so that it won't show up again. The trouble is, I haven't tried this, I'll try it, but it's just that you won't know what date it was deleted. So I don't think it matters on the calendar. But see now, if there's an agenda item, and you can't remember when we did it, you can just go in very easily and search the calendar for that word, and it'll go find the date. But if it's a recurring thing, I'm not sure if it'll keep the existing. Outlook does, but the town doesn't use Outlook. So I'll look at that, but I'm thinking it's very simple to do this unfinished thing, and it would come in, I'd put it on the back somewhere, I guess. And then we'd have an ongoing list of things, and we could keep working on getting that punched out. So, anything else? Any other questions about this? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bowen. I'll try to do better, not to break the law. Although I was the food in jail these days. Might be good. Might be good for my heart to take some time off. Okay, next up we have Mr. Bowen to discuss the town council status between Grabowski and the town of Wareham.
Well, now that I've won friends and influenced people on all sides, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I am going to be leaving the firm of Blattman, Bobrowski & Mead effective October 23rd, 2012. I won't get into all the business particulars of it, but as it pertains to Wareham, it boils down to this. I've had to devote a fairly vast amount of time to the town, which I cheerfully do. I enjoy working for you. The problems that you pose are unique and complex and at times numerous, but nonetheless very interesting. My motivation is public service. I've been doing public service all my life. I've been very unfair to my colleagues and partners at Blattman, Bobrowski & Mead because I have spent, I think, much more time attending meetings and office hours beyond that which was set forth in the original contract. And I think that's been unfair to my partners. I have been unfair to my partners. But it's what I felt was necessary to do the job that was at hand for you. So, in view of my impending departure, you received a letter from Lisa Mead informing the town that I would be departing the firm, and I forget the precise wording, but that the firm Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead would be very happy for me to continue to do the work of the town of Wareham. And so what I am respectfully asking is if you would consider appointing me as your town council. My proposal is this: I will honor the contract that is in place with you and hold the prices. I will, at your option, either use Mark Bobrowski and his associate Adam Costa to do land use work, or, in the alternative, use attorney John Witten and Barbara Huggins, his partner, to do your land use work. Again, all within the same contract terms and price that I have been doing the work for you up until now. I would continue to attend as many meetings as I can. I think the contract called for one a month, and I think, well, I go to more than one a month. The contract called for office hours once every couple of weeks. I think I'll do, that'd be like 2 a month. I think I'll do 2 this week. I've already done 1 today. That's the proposal. It's at your discretion as to how to handle it. I would be honored to continue to maintain a relationship with you. But again, it is entirely your choice.
Mr. Chairman, may I? I never get to go first.
Sit on the end of the table.
I want to preface my comments with how much I appreciate everything that Attorney Bowen has done for the community. And, you know, there's pros and cons to these kind of things. You know, we know Attorney Bowen. We feel comfortable with Attorney Bowen. But my concern, and I know he'll take it personally, but it's really not personal, he should know that, is that when we accepted this this contract with Bobrowski, Blattman, and Mead, it was the highest of the 3 proposals that we chose. And in a time when, you know, we should be really making sure that we're holding on to as many pennies as we can, I think that in fairness, I think we should do 2 things. I think we should, 1, we should be prepared to put out an RFP, and 2, we should have the discussion about hiring in-house counsel, which is something that's been brought up many times over the 2.5 years that I've sat on the board, and perhaps Attorney Bowen would be the perfect choice for that. But I think that we should keep Attorney Bowen on for the time being, number 1, because to make a change tonight or, you know, in the middle of something is, first of all, it's not fair to Attorney Bowen, who has been very good to us, and 2, it's not fair to the town. But I think that over the upcoming months, as we come upon the time to appoint town council, I think we need to be committed to exploring those options and deciding what's in the best interest of the community as a whole. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Slavin?
At this point in time, due to town meeting coming up and a lot of issues that are there, I'd be very leery of changing town council because of all the details and everything that's going on. You just can't afford to lose that continuity. If the board wants to come March, when they decide to renew a contract and not go in different directions, I have no problem with the discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify something about my comment? I want the board tonight to commit to exploring our options, because this past year we did not explore our options. We simply renewed a contract, and, you know, I don't think you can put a price on Attorney Bowen. He's priceless. But I think we have to commit to doing our due diligence. And I said this earlier, this isn't personal. It's very easy to get attached personally to somebody and to forget that we have an obligation.
Mr. Titlebaum?
I think Mrs. Winslow comes up with some interesting points. I would, however, suggest that we're a bit premature in thinking about full-time town council, because that involves creating an entirely new town department, which only town meeting can do. So that's outside of our purview. It's a road that I think that the town should look at and possibly come forward to town meeting with an article someday. It would be great to have ready access to council at all times. As hard as Attorney Bowen works here, we could work him a lot harder. Beyond that, one thing that concerns me about doing anything tonight is that we haven't really looked at the contract we have with Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead. Typically, in a contract, unless it's a specific personal services contract for a specific individual in a law firm, and I don't know that we have that currently with Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead. I think we just have them as a firm, as town council. They, in the absence of any language dealing with subcontracts, would have the right to subcontract the remaining period of their contract with us to Attorney Bowen. And I don't know that we're in a position to stop that, and I'm not saying we should want to stop that, but I don't know if we are in a legal position to stop that. So I think before we commit to anything tonight or decide anything, I think we should conditionally just continue the way we are. We're going to have to, get somebody else to look at the contract, frankly. It's unfair to ask Attorney Bowen to do it, and come to some kind of resolution as to what the contract rights and responsibilities are as between the parties before we think about doing anything. I think it would be imprudent without that information to sort of sally forth blindly here. So I'm mindful of your comments, and I certainly understand the tenor in which they're offered. I think we have to lay back and find that out first.
And just to be very clear, there will be no action. I will entertain no motions by the board this evening because this is listed on the agenda as a discussion item with Mr. Bowen. And therefore, I'm not going to be answering the phone this week about why we took motions and acted outside of the agenda. There's plenty of weeks left. We have several meetings over the next few weeks where we put this on as a legitimate agenda item for action. Mrs. Begley.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Although, Rich has been, how long have you been here? Town of Wareham.
In one form or another, maybe 24 years.
Wow. It's a long time. But you were with another firm and then went to this firm, and we kind of stayed consistent. And I agree that a decision shouldn't be made this evening, Mr. Chair. It's certainly beyond the scope of this agenda item. And I agree with Selectman Titlebaum that we need to look at the contract, because the only thing we have in our possession really is this letter that in very general terms has stated, it was unambiguous that Attorney Bowen and the firm are separating as of October 23rd, 2012. So we certainly will have to do something before then. But I recall that the many discussions when Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead were hired at the highest paid firm that had submitted RFPs because of Attorney Bobrowski wrote the book on zoning and land use. I know that he's helped us with quite a bit with Walmart, etc., as have other attorneys in the firm. And I know that you, Attorney Bowen, have been involved in every aspect. Even though we have counsel, you've kind of been the common thread and maintained consistency and certainly kept this board informed. But I hope that we can have this as an agenda item to act, because we certainly have to act prior to October 23rd, because our contract remains with the firm. We had a contract from March to March from I believe.
I think Mr. Chair, if I may, I believe the contract runs from like March 1st to February 28th.
Okay, so we have to act before October 23rd,
Correct.
and then decide what we're going to do until February 28th.
And I agree. My comments to my colleagues are that I think in fairness to all of us, I think that we have 6 months ahead of us, and we should be very open and honest, both with ourselves, the community, and Attorney Bowen, about what's going to happen next year, and we should be having conversations about whether or not it's prudent. We should be looking at all of our options very carefully. I think we owe that to the citizens and the taxpayers.
I think I agree. The first step, we need to look at that contract, and I'm sure we have many attorneys that are still being paid by the town, even though they shouldn't be. Have Mr. Sullivan, if you wouldn't mind to have one of them look at it. It wouldn't be fair to Mr. Bowen for him to look at his own. And I know it's a high cost. Trust me, it's not just in legal. In other areas of getting people to do work here, because it is very difficult. So, Derek, if you could put a rush on that, I'd like to get that back here, maybe next week. I'm sure it won't take that long. It's only a couple of pages.
Yes.
With a quick written opinion. I don't know, I'm sure you'll find the money to pay him. You got to pay him for the opinion. No freebies.
Gotcha.
You can't act on a free opinion by a lawyer. Correct, Mr. Bowen?
Sure.
One question.
Because someone could always ask for the receipt. I remember that. And get that out. If you get a response before, pass it out to the board, and we'll try to get it on next Tuesday's agenda. Yeah.
Just one question. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. The question is whether or not the existing firm we have a contract with can sublet to another lawyer if they feel like it. Is that correct?
That's the question I posed.
Well, it's a multiple part question. The first question is, there's actually three questions. One, can they do that based on the
Existing
on the contract that we have? The second question is, as a board, can we just appoint Mr. Bowen to finish the term, which is only 5 months away, and finish the term without a bid? Those are the questions.
I think if you look at procurement law with the dollar amount involved, I believe we would run into an issue if there wasn't.
Well, and that's why we need to have
So
we need to have
That's
it
true
looked
for
at to
council.
answer those questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I believe the council is one of the excluded ones, and
It's exempt.
for Rich,
But
yeah.
we need.
Right, we
Whether,
need it to
whether
go
you
to
know
a
it's
lawyer.
exempt or not, I really love it. But what I'd like is a written opinion for the board to get,
Absolutely.
so that no one can come into these five members in this chamber again and say, "Hey, you guys did something," without a written opinion. I'd like to have a written opinion, Mr. Sullivan. Can you take care of that?
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
along with the written opinion, would it be possible for all the members to get a copy of the contract as well?
Easy enough. I would expect that would be part of the correspondence back from you, Mr. Sullivan. Okay. Mr. Bowen, I'm sorry, Rich, I didn't ask you if you had a comment, because
Very, very
you're the
quickly.
important guy in the room right now.
Well, just a few quick points. I think you'll find that Chapter 30B excludes professional service contracts for attorneys, engineers, and so forth. On the bid prices, I believe we were the second low bidder. We reduced our price, so it was Copeland and Page, Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead, and then Miares. And then just on that, the low bid from Kopelman went from previous years an average of over 300, between 300 and $400,000 a year down to 100. So you can weigh that for what you think it's worth. And then finally, Attorney Bobrowski would certainly continue on in Walmart or any of those other special projects. This is not a.
And I think Jay is also working.
Yeah.
Working some as well.
This is not an unfriendly arrangement. It's more a question of the time that is being put in.
May I ask a question regarding that? I know, we'll have, this is discussion, certainly not determination. If Attorney Bobrowski or Attorney Whitten, or, like you mentioned some of the attorneys that will continue to work on various areas, should Attorney Bobrowski work on something, is that an extra cost to the town? It's not included in the price that you would receive.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I think you'll find that, for example, the way the contract was written was that special projects where the developer was paying the legal cost were not part of the flat fee. So, for example, in Walmart, that is paid out of the 53G account, thank you, and is not covered by the flat fee. But generally speaking, land use services of most types, but not all, are covered by the flat fee. And so that that's the way it's been up till now. And were you to make a change going forward, that's the way it would continue to be, with the exception of the 53G matters.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
If anything changes, you keep us posted, and we'll keep you posted as well.
Mr. Chairman, next we have discussion of and potential selection of town administrator candidates.
We had, as I'll go through this very quickly. We had a posting. We had a screening committee. We had interviews. We had a recommendation from the screening committee. We had background checks done. We had a public meeting almost 2 weeks ago. And it's back on the agenda this evening because I didn't think it was, well, it's not worthwhile to put it on the agenda unless there are 5 selectmen present. So this evening we have 5 people. We'll go right around the table, take comments on any ideas you have on the candidates. I thought we would start with our 2 members from the screening committee who were part of the initial interviews with the clients. And with that, Mrs. Begley.
Interesting. I really have nothing to add. We certainly had the conversations with multiple candidates and came up with the three finalists. Actually, for the benefit of the listening public, we had 4, and 1 did drop out. I think she took a job elsewhere. But the 3 final candidates came and interviewed in a public manner, and I'm kind of ready to vote.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chairman, this is something that Mrs. Begley and I have spent the last several months on, and we spent a good deal of time through this whole process. I've made my decision, so I don't really have anything to say either.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about here is our decision. We may be picking one. I mean, that's what it's about. We don't want to know. I just gave people the schedule that we went through. This is more specific to the interviews that we just had.
Well,
So
Mr.
I'd like
Chair,
to know your opinion. I know you spent a lot of time, but what's your opinion?
I think the first fair question to the board is whether or not the majority of the board wishes to hire any of those 3 candidates. I think that's the first question, because if a majority of us don't, then we're simply spinning our wheels.
Well, and I think that's what I'm kind of going for here.
So then, can we take a vote?
Sure.
All those in favor of hiring any of the 3 finalists, say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstain? What? No what?
No, not in favor of hiring any of the 3.
Okay. Well, that takes care of that. Well, what was the abstain? 1, 2?
I abstained, yes.
1, 2, 1. That's 5 of us.
That's 5 of us.
1, 2, 1. There's only 4.
Wait, how many is that?
Oh, 1, 3, 1. Okay. All right. Well, we'll move along and get that reposted, and
Mr. Chairman,
those 31 people won't apply again, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to discuss the hiring of an interim who can serve the town for a period of time specified in a contract so that we can try and bring some stability back to the position, which I believe is one of the detractions.
Just as a point of order, I think we would have needed to have that specifically listed as a condition if we failed to arrive at a consensus candidate tonight, to then talk about an interim and the process going forward. I understand why you're posing this question, but I think that we would be best served if we put it as a separate future agenda item as to what to do about the position, and just have a general discussion on it.
I'm just stating, Mr. Titlebaum, that it would be my opinion that we should discuss that as opposed to just simply reposting the job.
Well, we need to repost the position. If you're not satisfied with 31 people, maybe we'll get 31 more.
Well, I think this is all a discussion to be had for a different day.
Okay. Next.
Any other?
Town administrator's report.
I have some good news. First up is I'd like to thank Mr. Gifford and congratulate him, and specifically Debbie Correa out of his office. We received our first Maya grant of $5,000 for safety equipment, so we did get that one. I know that that guy is put in for one as well, so we're hoping here on that. The police department, those are the ones that I'm aware of, so I'll let you know if I hear of anybody else. That was really a good thing that we're excited about. The other thing that I wanted to bring forward is we did hire a temporary municipal maintenance worker on there, Mr. Cardoza, and he's going to be, for the next 15 weeks, working 40 hours a week. And actually, this is going to be a savings, because right now we've lost one employee, and everybody's been stepping up, but however, they've been paid overtime. So over the next 15 weeks, this is going to save us roughly $7,000 hiring a temporary employee. So I know this is not listed on the agenda, but I would ask.
No, that's your
okay.
Fine. You know, and quite frankly, I still, the way I read it, I don't even think it's necessary, but you know what? It is what it is.
Make me feel good.
Does anybody have any objection to the hiring of the, what was it again?
Temporary full-time position of labor custodian within the Wareham Town Buildings Department.
Anybody have any objection?
None at all. Welcome aboard.
Want a motion or not?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
I'd make a motion to affirm the hiring by the town administrator.
Thank you. Have a motion made.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Abstain? You opposed?
No. I said I'm not opposed.
500.
Mr.
Is
Chair,
correct?
yes. I thought you said that we didn't really affirm, like, it was, you said the last time that it's day to day.
It doesn't need to come here.
Exactly. I thought it was more or less department heads or those kinds of things,
So,
or
anything
more,
but-
more importantly, if we didn't agree.
If I could finish what I said was that this board, the way I read it, only has to ratify the appointments made by Mr. Sullivan. What Mr. Gifford appoints, Mr. Gifford reports to Mr. Sullivan. Doesn't report to the Board of Directors. Chief appoints, reports to Mr. Sullivan, not the Board of Selectmen. And the last time it came up, I think I lost that argument, but it's in there. I read it in the Selectmen's policy book, I believe.
I think Mr. Chair, in the charter, the town administrator is the appointing authority for all positions within the town, whether it's
Well, I don't know. Did you actually interview these people for a temporary job?
Mr. Edwards did, from Joe Edwards from the Municipal Maintenance Department. And he made the recommendation, and we did the
So,
hiring.
If the town administrator is hiring, sitting down, interviewing temporary employees, I would have a serious discussion with the town administrator.
I'm not suggesting that he is, Mr. Chairman. I'm just suggesting that he's the appointing authority.
No, he's not the hiring authority. The department head is really. But see, that's where the argument came in. So you know what? It takes 30 seconds without discussion to do it. So just, I don't think it. Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
One more thing, I've been speaking to the Rochester Town Administrator. They do not have a weights and measures person, so the thought would be to use ours. We would receive all the fees on there, and it would actually, be to our benefit on there. So we should be getting a letter hopefully soon on that.
Great.
Outstanding work.
And that is all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anything on the liaison report?
I have just one thing, only because it'll happen before, so odd to meet on a Monday. Next Tuesday, I believe it's at 5 o'clock, is the Transportation Action Committee prior to the Board of Selectmen's meeting in this room, I believe. Yeah, it's early. It's like 5, just in case we had executive at 6. And then I believe that will also be the first Wednesday for the Board of Health. So that's at 4 in the cafeteria.
The one I signed was color.
Oh, no, Tuesday one day, Wednesday the next.
I don't have any. Mr. Slavin?
The Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission were meeting today. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. The Historic District Commission has what could be a serious issue. I believe back in the early 70s, Wareham basically voted at a town meeting for a historical district, which is over by Center Park, and we had an issue with a building on Park Street which faces the park, and there was an issue where there was no restriction on the deed for the property as being in a historical district, which gives the Historical District Commission say on what happens to any part of the building that's visible in the front, all the sides that you can see. It seems as though we never filed anything, and the question is whether we had a file, but as of right now, there is a question whether the Center Park Historical District is actually an historical district. So this is, I believe, our town council is looking into this, or has been requested. So it is an issue which is going to cause a problem till we cure it. Thank you.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a liaison report?
Yeah, Mr. Titlebaum, I think you're the chairman of, I think you're the liaison of the Wareham Cultural Committee. Is that you? We said. We said it was you.
You look.
You weren't here, so we made you the
Don't
liaison.
make me go home.
Yeah.
Don't make me go home and dig it up.
We thought that you were a very cultural person.
I'm not quite sure how to take that, whether I should say yes or no.
It was a compliment.
Cultured or cultural?
Well, let's get back to it. Are you the liaison? Do you know? Or you don't know? Okay, that's all I had. I just wanted to ask him a question.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all
Aye.
in favor? All opposed, abstained, 500.